Squid Game has absolutely exploded in popularity. And while in this instance this was done totally organically and wasn't really intentional, I feel like this is very indicative and will likely really influence marketing as we move forward. For the last couple of years, we've already seen companies trying to latch onto social media and find the different ways that they can use it for advertising. We see the very annoying social media accounts. We see sponsorships and different just normal advertising. I mean, some of it is very basic. You can just slap an advertisement onto a platform, there it is. But something like the potential of creating trends around products is a lot more involved, and I'm not sure that we've quite gotten there yet, although clearly the potential is there. There's already some marketing done on social media that is very unique to the platform or to, I guess, this sphere. The first one that I will always think of is sponsorships. Sponsorships aren't really something that you would have before, because before it wasn't like stars or influencers had their own platforms. Yes, they had fame, they had an image, and that could be used. It wasn't kind of the same thing. Celebrity endorsement would be more so about, yes, using that person's image, the reputation and relationship that they have with their viewers, but it would be ultimately just placing them into an already existing commercial or campaign. There wouldn't be really anything unique to do with the actual person involved. Whereas with sponsorships, there's a lot more creative liberty given to the influencer. They're able to change that campaign, change that messaging in order to best fit their audience. And oftentimes it's very carefully integrated in order to feel natural or more personal or generally have that more very social media authenticity side to things, which is also an important part of the whole sponsorship idea. There's parasocial relationships and an increased amount of trust with a social media influencer over your traditional celebrity. Now, the upside for the creator in that is that you have a lot more control. You can keep your integrity when you're doing a sponsorship. You get to choose a lot more of what it is that you want to highlight or say and how much you want to emphasize that product. At the end of the day, you have a lot more creative control than you would under a celebrity endorsement style commercial. Now, this is a downside for the companies because they have a lot less control, and they also, at the end of the day, are at the mercy of those influencers. They don't control that commodity. The influencers do. So they're doing their best to take control of that by creating their own social media accounts and trying to kind of emulate an influencer, but this time with their brand, which does make sense. Not only do they now have control over that image, but it also is basically like free advertising. You don't really have to pay, or in theory you don't have to, and you probably shouldn't pay in order to get boosts when it comes to social media, in order to get views and likes and all that stuff. You more so pay when it comes to your time, the amount of effort or equipment that you're putting into the creation of that social media thing, where the money goes in. That's a lot less than paying to have your ad on TV or something like that. So a lot of companies and brands are doing this by personifying their brand and trying to turn that into basically an influencer of sorts. The biggest one where we've seen it is definitely with the fast food chains. On one hand, you have Denny's doing whatever the heck Denny's is doing, and on the other, you have things like Burger King and Wendy's literally trying to personify their image in order to get people to interact like a normal social media account, whether that mean the parasocial relationships, whether that mean the impressions and the general boost in people seeing your stuff, or trying to replicate an influencer. I guess all of those are probably the reasons why they're doing it. So we already are seeing brands interacting with social media and trying to create those organic kind of interactions in social media. What we haven't seen is these brands creating trends or creating these larger things that go beyond just their individual post, but into creating a whole community or a whole kind of buzz around their product. Now, some of this is just that it is very hard to do. Even those that are already on social media, those that have created their whole brand on social media, can really struggle in order to try and make a whole campaign that goes beyond just themselves. And it's not like these companies are exactly hip when it comes to interacting with social media. I think something that is kind of the most similar thing that we see when it comes to kind of integrating away from sponsorships and away from individual interactions towards these kind of trends is actually gaming sponsorships. With a lot of gaming sponsorships, it's less so about just a 30-second ad break in the middle of a video or generally trying to push people towards the product, but oftentimes with gaming sponsorships, it will be sponsoring an entire video or an entire stream around that game. And while yes, there will be those bits in there where it's like, hey, go buy this game using my code for blah 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 blah, the whole thing is both an advertisement but also just organic content. People will watch this and will actually watch it because it's someone who they already enjoy, and they will already enjoy this video regardless if it was sponsored or not. And with that, there is a lot of positive connotation that you're getting from that. You are seeing someone who you really enjoy having a fun time with this game. Kind of adds that reputation to it. It adds that kind of like, well, if I play this game, then I'm more like that person. The fact that you're just kind of being engrossed in it, you're fully understanding what the game is because you're seeing it actually being played, you're just getting a lot of impressions from it. In marketing, there's this idea of an impression is whenever you see something, so it doesn't necessarily mean that you enjoy it, it doesn't necessarily mean that you want to buy it, or even that you recognize that it's an impression, but it means that you saw something. And there's a bunch of different numbers that people throw out, everywhere from like 3 to 7 to like 15 of how many impressions it takes before someone will actually click on something or before someone will actually buy something. So every single time that someone sees your product or is thinking about your product, it's a good thing. It's kind of part of where the any publicity is good publicity idea comes from. And so when someone is sitting there and they're watching a 30-minute video about your game, that's a lot of impressions, both from just the pure number of views and just the fact that people are watching for so long. It's a very meaningful impression. And so I think something like that, where you're not only integrating your product into people's content, but we're integrating your product into a more integral and organic part of people's content, is likely a very good place where advertising could go. See, I say this, I hate advertising. Well, I love advertising. It's a double-edged sword. There are two wolves inside of me. One loves the idea of marketing and using all of it, and the other side of me is like consumerism bad, marketing bad. So it's complicated. But anyway, in the idea of selling more things, making this kind of approach, while it would be very expensive, is probably the way that companies need to go if they're trying to advertise in these new spheres successfully, because currently it's not really working. And also there needs to be a shift because the younger generations aren't watching traditional media. These companies, if they want to stay afloat, need to figure out how to advertise on social media. Like, it's just how it be. So yeah. Why am I helping the system? No. But let's bring this all around to the one thing that kind of was the inception point for this video, Squid Game. So when I was kind of trying to break down this trend, both related to the current ways that kind of brands advertise on social media, as well as just kind of inspecting it as a trend and how did it get people to watch Squid Game and all that different stuff, it was kind of interesting in that it wasn't really what you would expect when you really think about it. So the Dalgona trend, I said that like it was Spanish. Dalgona, I can't, anytime I say a foreign word, I say it like it's Spanish, and I know that it's not, but it's fine. It was definitely inspired by the show, and it definitely was clearly taken from the show, but it doesn't actually tell you anything about it. It doesn't really tell you to go watch it. It doesn't tell you what the plot is or anything to do with it. It just shows you, hey, there's this one game, and there's this vague allusion at it killing people, and you're like, oh, okay, sure, I guess. And it's through that curiosity that it gets you in. It is through you questioning of like, okay, where did this thing come from? I am confused, that you then go research what Squid Game is and what is this thing. And then you get to the show and then you're like, okay, wait, what? I am so confused. And so you watch the show and then you watch the show and it's a really good show and you're hooked. And so now you're watching the show and now you're telling people, oh yeah, you see this weird trend? Here's what it comes from. This is what it's about. Like, you should watch this game. You should watch the show. It is so cool. And it is through that mix of trend and curiosity and word of mouth that Squid Game absolutely exploded. And then also because it's now getting all of this attention from all of these now different spheres, it also blew up with algorithms, and it makes perfect sense when you look at it, but it also doesn't make perfect sense when you look at it. But it worked because it, 1, had a good trend, 2, picked up on the algorithm, and 3, there was a good funnel for it to go to. When people went to Squid Game, they were satisfied continuing the cycle and then also not making it turn into kind of like a hate thing of like, went to see this show, turns out it's bad, don't watch it, you know? But it's also so interesting because it was organic. It's not like anyone tried to plan this or make this happen. It happened organically because TikTok be TikTok. And so I wonder if it's even replicable. You can't fully predict how things are going to do on social media. There's certain ways that you can orient a trend or a video in order to make it most successful, but there's no guarantees. So I wonder if people could turn it into a science and if it would be able to be replicated, but it's kind of hard to say because there is no basis for it, and there's very few trends that have led people towards things to kind of use as a basis. Although we are seeing it happen. Something that I thought of is a lot of the like clothing items or the like cute items that people will buy because of trends. And I wonder if that maybe could be used as a basis of trying to see what it is that works and doesn't work for creating an artificial trend. And I don't know, it's just very fascinating to me, and it's an open horizon. It's a blue water enterprise. Can you tell that I thought I wanted to be a marketing major? Now I think I want to go into coding. Something else that has happened recently is Mr.Beast has launched Team C's, and he, obviously a social media influencer who has had a lot of success in creating trends and ideas around getting people to do things in the past. And he also, specifically for Team C's, tried to get a lot of other influencers to say things, but not through like, you need to do something through this way, but by sharing a single video and then people then being able to take their own creative liberty and do their own thing in order to try and push this thing out. And they all did it under a single hashtag, so I think it could kind of be classified under a trend, and it was very successful. I mean, in part because it is backed by these things and people had a lot of incentive to do it just because like, hey, save the planet. But I do wonder if that is kind of another thing that could be replicated of, is there a way that if you can just get people to use this one hashtag at this one time to kind of get the algorithm primed and going, and then if you have them get a general idea of something to do similarly, if that is how you could kind of artificially make a trend happen, again, then it'd just be a matter of how do you pay all of these really big influencers and that kind of a deal. But I don't know, it's just, again, it's fascinating to me. I am a nerd. Anyway, speaking of platforms and influencers, please like, comment, and subscribe to help boost this video. If you enjoy this video or any of my other videos, please subscribe because it really helps pet your animals, water your plants, drink water, and have a good day.